Meeting to order the policy committee meeting and public hearing agenda. And I'll just start right down. First thing is introductions. And I'm Ed Jansen, chairman for this meeting. And so
I'd like to, well, this was going to be a staff communications, but I'd like to announce and introduce Greg Jones, who has joined our staff on Monday of this week. And Steve knows him because he's the transcriptionist for the Planning Board and Conservation Commission in Barrington, and he's going to be our data collection and analysis technician. And he's a graduate of Plymouth State and has been born and raised in New Hampshire.
Oh, I'm from Massachusetts.
Sorry.
Well, we moved here when I went to college.
Yeah. Well, welcome, and we're pleased to have you here with us. You're next, Steve.
Steve Conklin, Barrington.
Carolyn Barton, Strafford Regional Planning.
Dan Camara, Strafford Regional Planning.
Mark Ambrosi, Strafford Regional Planning.
Ken Orman, City of Rochester.
Bob Jaffin, Rochester.
And Comeau, Brookfield.
okay. Good morning, everyone. You have other staff communications or?
I wish everybody a really happy holiday. And I'm very thankful that we haven't had a big snowstorm yet.
So am I.
Yes. All the town and city budgets are very thankful.
For sure. Okay, then we'll move on to item 3, and we have some public hearings here. And so we'll go to item 3.1, open the public hearing to receive public comment on draft amendment number 1 to the scope of work for FY 2012-13 Unified Planning Work Program, UPWP. So we are now open and
All right. So let's give you a brief overview of what we're looking to do with the UPWP. We're making these changes in response to a couple of areas that we noticed we had trouble reporting and documenting our work for New Hampshire DOT, and some areas that we really didn't have any, I guess, defined scope of work currently in our UPWP that would allow us to work in those areas. So these changes are not changing any of the funding for any of the categories. And to summarize the changes, we have 3 areas. So the first area is in the 200 category. It's under the Metro Transportation Plan. It's a subtask called Project Portfolios and Project Database. This is going to allow us to take the work and the information we got from the project solicitation process we did earlier this year, write up detailed summaries of those meetings and of the projects, and gather information about those projects, and also to create a database on Access or some other database program to, I guess in the future, probably work with New Hampshire DOT's new RMS system, which is the Resource Management Database. But this, we think, is going to help us really streamline the process, track projects in a much better way. And it's going to make things easier down the road and kind of bring us up to speed. So we have more information for communities, DOT, or anybody who's interested in finding out more about the projects in our region. The next area, it's an entire new task in Category 5. This is for intermodal transportation planning and integration. And this really came about when we were planning a project for the Tiger 3 grant round. It was a rail project, and we realized we don't have anywhere in our UPWP that really lays out a space for us to do rail planning, and also with that was port planning and aviation planning. We did have a comment from Lee Levine from Federal Highways at our TAC meeting when they recommended this for approval, and he noted that PL funds from Federal Highways need to be used for surface transportation. So with the port and aviation planning, there are a few changes to the language that really does a better job of defining what type of work we're going to be doing, talking about the surface transportation connections to the airports or ports, and it's also, it's talking about the intermodal transfer and ground access to these facilities. So we won't be doing any planning of the facilities because that's not allowed under Federal Highways guidance, but we hope to do some planning about access, egress, intermodal transfer, and safety and ground access. So that's the gist of the changes for the UPWP. That's about it for that, if there's any questions.
Just a quick question, and you mentioned that it's not going to change the funding at all.
Yep.
If you can take these additional tasks on, is it something that's not going to get done now?
We don't anticipate that any of our work products that we had outlined previously are not going to be fulfilled. We think that, it's come to light that especially the rail planning is pretty important for our region, and we think it fits pretty nicely in with the work that we have now, and it shouldn't be an issue.
Just checking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Good question.
Any other questions or comments for the record?
I think these are very appropriate changes that make the UPWP a more comprehensive document, attacking transportation needs at all levels. So I support that.
Thank you. Other comments? If not, I'll call close to the public hearing. Immediately move to opening a public hearing to receive public comment for approval of updates to the prospectus.
All right. A recent rule adoption or update of ENVA 1500 by the legislature in New Hampshire triggered this revision to our prospectus. We took this as an opportunity to make a number of other changes just to bring our prospectus, make it as current as possible. And so I've provided a summary of the changes in the document in the memo, but I can go through these quickly. A number of these are just small changes to language, just to, like the first change, for instance, in section 4.6, it's talking about air quality conformity, and language was just changed to note that the June 2010 deadline has passed and we have achieved attainment in this region. And we're maintaining that and clearing that through the interagency consultation process. But a lot of the changes are minor in nature, just basic things like that. Some of the bigger changes, in section 6, it talks about amendments and procedures for public notices for amending the Transportation Improvement Program, and these have changed a little bit this past year. DOT and MPOs went through their STIP-Lean process to try to figure out how to make the whole amendment procedures a little bit more efficient and work better for both DOT and the regional planning commissions. So the big changes are for full amendments, like TIP Amendment 4 that we'll be reviewing later. The public notice period, depending on the significance of the changes included in the STIP amendment, has gone from a strict 30-day public notice period to a 10 to 30-day public notice period, and we're going to decide that through the interagency consultation process, which is a monthly meeting between the metropolitan planning organizations, DOT, federal highways, federal transit, and EPA and DES. So it's a lot of the groups that are involved in transportation coming together to make these choices. There were two other changes, a little bit smaller in nature. We have a process which the executive commission here at SRPC should be familiar with. It's the minor revisions. And in the past, there were administrative modifications and informational revisions. And the new draft guidance from DOT changes those a little bit to administrative modifications major, which are basically correlate to the administrative modifications in the previous, I guess, in the current system. And there's also administrative modifications minor, which correlates to the informational revisions. The minor revisions, the administrative modifications minor, will no longer need MPO approval to get those passed. These are really small things. A lot of times it's word changes or description changes that are really minor in nature. And I think the intent is if there's an expedited or a change that needs to be done quickly for DOT so they can be responsive, they won't have to go through the process of waiting for a month to get MPOs to approve these changes. So that's the major change there. At this point, the draft revision procedures that DOT released in April, I believe, has not been adopted yet, but we were told on our interagency consultation that we should adopt these into our prospectus at this point because DOT anticipates getting a partial or full adoption of these rules within the next few months. So it was recommended by DOT that we make these changes now. Moving along, section 7.53 was titled TIP Amendments Exempt from the public involvement process. That entire section was taken out because in 2008, guidance from federal highways indicated that that was no longer something we could do. So now all big changes need to go through an amendment process. So that was just pulled right out of the document. In section 8, which was talking about amendment procedures, we added language to this section. So technical revisions that have already been through a public notice process or a public hearing and public comment process, we're reducing some redundancy. So for instance, the ENVA 1500, it's a current rule. It was recently changed, but it's already been through the public involvement process. So us now going through the 45-day public involvement process again costs money to go to Foster's. It takes 45 days of public notice to get it adopted, and it's really just a technical revision with some small language changes, but the intent of the rule isn't changing. So we added language. So in cases like this, we will defer to the latest current rule, I guess, or approved rule for those situations. And yeah, I guess going through the document, I've pulled out the pages where the major changes have happened. And the new languages, it's on our website, but I've also highlighted the areas that have changed. This basically goes over the two different types of administrative modifications. The project thresholds have changed slightly, so we included the new table. There was a little bit of new language for interagency consultation we wanted to include, and the amendment section expanded a little bit. And that's basically all we have here. And I've included the section with the language that we had added in section 8 to allow us to make changes to the document as technical revisions. And that's about it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to.
Questions, comments? Hearing no call for discussion or so forth, I guess I will close the public hearing at this time. Thank you. Moving on to